Going live. All right, it's live. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brian Kwong. We have a burning question hangout today with Jan and other Add1 challengers who are taking on to learn a language and to be able to hold a 15-minute conversation in 90 days. So it's going to be a lot of fun. They're just going to ask the questions, the burning questions they have while they're learning a language, and we're just also going to hang out. And so let's get right to it. Jan, can you unmute your mic real quick?
Yes, Brian. Hello.
So let's
Nice
thank
to
you
see
for thank you for joining us.
No problem.
Can you give us a little? So I can give a brief introduction. You can. Jan is. It's a good friend of mine. We met a few years ago, and I met him in Budapest in the first Postdoc conference, and then we're just talking, like, hey, how are you? Like, what's your name? How do you think? Have you been to Budapest before? All these boring questions. I'm like, da 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 da. And then he opened his mouth and started speaking Mandarin. I'm like, oh, hey, your Mandarin is pretty damn good. And then instantly, I felt like a connection. He's like, he's like, became like a brother to me. All of a sudden.
All of a sudden.
All of a sudden, became like a brother. So that was my first time that I ever experienced that. When Nelson Mandela quotes something, I'm going to paraphrase that. When you speak to somebody, I don't remember the quote. Somebody help me out here.
Yeah, if you speak to someone's, what was it? If you speak the language that someone understands, it goes to his mind. If you speak someone's native language, it goes to his heart, something like that, right?
Exactly, and that was the first time that I actually experienced that. Mm-hmm. So with Jan today, and his goal is really inspiring. Why don't you share with us about what you do and like where you from?
Yeah, so I'm from Holland. I'm Dutch. I just turned 28 years old last month. Mm-hmm. I'm an entrepreneur. I run a translation business, and I do that together with a friend here in the Netherlands. The work that I do, I can do online. So most of the time I'm traveling. Well, I travel 6 months per year. That allows me to go almost wherever I want, as long as there's internet, of course. So yeah, I do really like traveling, and if I go to another country, I always try to learn the local language. So last year I spent 4 months in Brazil, where I learned Portuguese. Earlier this year, 2 months in Morocco, where I learned French. Yes, French in Morocco. Yeah. I've lived 2 years in China, did a few summer semesters in South Korea, half a year in Indonesia. So yeah, I really like to travel and meet people, explore new cultures.
And your goal is to buy before 30? Can you share with us what your goal is?
Yeah, so currently I've visited 83 countries, and the goal is to visit 100 before my 30s. I thought that would be a nice challenge to something nice to accomplish. Yeah, so I have to do, in order to reach that goal, I have to travel 10 countries per year. And new countries per year, and that's I'm on schedule.
So 100 countries before you turn 30.
Yeah, and speaking 10 languages.
Exactly, and then you have 8 so far.
Yeah, 8 where I can communicate in. Yeah. And then, no, not communicate. It's a language in which I can have a conversation. There's a few others which I can communicate in, but I don't count these yet.
Got it. Okay. There's a party truck coming by. Okay. 1 second. Sorry about that. All right, so let's jump right into the question. There are pretty girls on the truck too. So this is like when they promote. There's a party here. Okay. Wow, we're a full house now. So let's go with the question. Who wants to go ask the question first? All right. Anybody want to ask a question? Please mute yourself. This is Mr. Let me mute you.
Hello? Someone has a question for me? Please.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
So
Hi.
my question was, what's the biggest experience that you've had that you would have missed out on had you not learned the local language?
Mm. I think it's meeting people. As I said, 5 years ago was the first time that I went to China, that I went to another continent, and it was completely it was a different world for me. But that the ability to speak Chinese allowed me to meet so many people. I have had I got really nice friends because of speaking Chinese. Because in China most of the people they don't speak English. Because of speaking Chinese allowed me to connect to well, also interesting people in terms of business. I got a few good business relationships out of that as well. But I think in the end, yeah, it's the people that you meet, it's the people that show you their world in their language, and that allow me to learn a lot about Chinese culture, Chinese language as well, also the Chinese business culture. I was allowed to, um, yeah, the speaking the language really enabled me to explore another scene of China. Most of the foreigners, they go to Shanghai, Beijing, go to the Great Wall, they climb the Victoria Peak in Hong Kong. But yeah, speaking the language really allowed me to see China from a different perspective. I think that's the greatest experience I've had of learning another language. It's
Awesome.
not just one. It's just all the good things that happen to you once you speak the language.
Good things happen to you once you speak the language. That's a great quote.
Maybe also bad things, but yeah, good things as well.
But I'm sure.
Oh, sorry, Brian. Can you say that again?
I think Brian's struggling with his internet
Yeah.
connection.
Connection's not very good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. Yep.
Okay, let me.
Yeah.
I said definitely more good things than bad things
Mm-hmm.
once you speak the
For
language.
sure.
Great question, man. Okay, so let's go with another question. Let's see. Let me find a spot. Find a spot. Okay, let's see. How about here? It should be better now. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
They have all muted the microphones, Brian.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you too, so it should be fine. Yeah, they all nod. Okay, now you're gone.
Man. Hello?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Ready?
Yeah. I'm ready for the next question.
Damn. Can you hear me?
Go.
Sorry,
Yes.
guys. All right, so Maureen from the Add1Challenge asked, I'd like to know how you make your decision on which countries to travel to, and do you choose your language based on those places you're traveling to? Or do you choose the
Yes.
language first and then visit the country to practice?
Cool. It really depends. For example, after I learned Chinese in China, I wanted to learn another language of another big country in the world, and then I thought Brazil would be very interesting. So yeah, based on that, I chose Portuguese just because I wanted to learn another big language, another language which is spoken by many people in the world. So that was the reason why I chose Brazilian Portuguese. I think most of the time. Okay, let me think actually about. Yeah, and then of course French. Yeah, everyone speaks French only 2 hours from here in Brussels, for example. So that was the reason why I wanted to learn French. It's a big language. I think what I wanted to do at first is I wanted to cover the big languages, or the languages the most spoken in the world. I think that's how I chose my most of the languages. Then there's also language like Cantonese, for example. It just sounds very nice, like Thai. think Thai as well sounds very difficult, sounds very foreign, and that's another thing that motivates me in language learning. If the language sounds nice. Yes. No, Brian is gone again.
Yeah.
Oh no, there you are.
Cool. Okay, so let's get a question from the people in the Hangout if they can, if they are still here, because everybody's frozen on my thing.
I'll go.
Anybody have a question? Can you hear me, Jan?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm not sure if anybody else can hear me.
Wow, I can hear Brian.
Cool. You got a question?
Yeah. A pretty simple one. You said you know 8 languages now. Is there anything that you know now that you wish you knew back when you started?
Yeah. Yes, it's a very good question, I think. If I would start, I started learning language really seriously about 5 years ago. I think it was just about the time when I went to China, or 6 years ago. What I would have done differently if I had to start all over again today is I would start practicing speaking practice just from day one. I learned Spanish in school, I learned German and also English, but when I was 19 I went to Costa Rica for the first time. It was the first time that I had to speak English, or either English or Spanish, and it was a complete disaster. I learned English for 8 years in school, but I'd never spoken it with someone. So speaking a language, that really changed everything for me. Practicing, that's what I mean. So also in the beginning when I learned Spanish, I did not really practice. So I spent 3 months in Costa Rica. I came back and I could not speak Spanish because I did not practice. I did not dare to speak Spanish to the people there. So I would. That's a thing I would definitely change if I had to do it all over again. Just speak more. Speak more. 50-50. 50% speaking, 50% studying, something like that. Depends on the person, but yeah, you have to practice. You can't learn swimming by not swimming. You have to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Awesome. Speak it. And all right, next question. Let's get one from our email subscribers. Add1Challenge email subscribers. This is a funny question. This question is from Libra. I probably say it wrong, but this is what he said. Language is a tool for communication. Effectively used leads to the connection you have mentioned, where the byproduct of effective use is attraction. I would ask Jan to recall how often you causes attraction with your language abilities, and we can speak. Do you intentionally build it on it and use it to seduce?
What do you mean by attraction? You mean attraction by the other sex, or by the opposite, by females, or what? Sorry?
I've got a lot of stuff pending. I'm in a bit of a...
Doesn't really matter, but
okay.
Probably female. You weren't seducing me when you're speaking Mandarin, were you?
No, not really. I don't know how you felt at that moment, but no, I think this really depends on the language. Like for example, Spanish or Portuguese, I don't know, Spanish or French, or German, like the languages that are more that white people, that white people speak. I think for them, for the native speakers of those languages, I think it's a bit. I don't think it's very easy to get attracted by them just by speaking their language. Yeah, some people might find it cute, but I think by speaking the Asian languages, I think that's where it happens. So I was in Hong Kong last week, and I was in a hotel, and then this girl, she worked in a hotel, but she did not speak English very well, and so she started speaking Cantonese because she found out that I spoke some Cantonese. And, it was not. Yeah, we had a fun conversation, and it went quite smoothly, but she was so surprised, like, when she found out that I spoke some Cantonese, she was like, oh, 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 have you had a girlfriend before in Hong Kong? Oh, and they were completely. She was completely. Yeah, she was impressed because there's not so many white people, I guess, in Hong Kong that speak Cantonese. So, yeah, it definitely helps for sure. And I think it's more for the Asian languages than for the European languages, for example. So, yeah, that might definitely be a very good motivation for the guys here in the Add1Challenge as well, in case they're learning Asian languages.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I can hear you.
I said it's for Asian language for a white person, but for me it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, well, and I do have friends.
Yeah, they expect me to speak.
Yeah, but it also works for I have many friends from Brazil. If they go to Ukraine or Russia or Poland, and they speak the local language, it's the girls they get crazy.
Oh, really? Got it. Okay, I'll take.
So yeah, I think for some girls it's can be very attractive. Yes.
Hello, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yes.
Hey.
Go, Benson.
Hello, Boogie. Long time no see. Just a quick question. Can you highlight something in your current?
Sorry, can I highlight something in my current what? Mm-hmm. Brian, you're still there?
Can you say it again, Benson?
Can you type? Yeah, or type.
Can you say it again, Benson? What's your question?
Okay, looks like he's gone for now. Someone else, maybe?
I'll go.
Yes.
So, Jan, I'm learning German, and I'm at the point where I kind of need to start learning the grammar, but I'm finding it quite difficult. My question is, how do you usually go about learning grammar, and specifically in German, I'm struggling with the cases.
Mm-hmm. What I would do for languages which have like German with difficult grammar, I think this works differently depending on the person. But for me, I think speaking has become a very powerful tool in order to become comfortable in the language. So I would first speak it a lot, and after I'm able to speak the language, with mistakes, of course, with all the grammatical mistakes, only later, in a later stage, I would use a grammar book and study the rules again, because it all makes more sense if you see all these explanations in a sentence that you can already use. I think it makes more sense to learn grammar afterwards, because it's not so intimidating anymore once you speak the language already. You just have to correct yourself, and when you see all the grammar explanations, I always have this feeling like, so that's why they do it. You speak the language already, only find it out later on. There is people who disagree on that. I know some very accomplished polyglots, like, for example, Alex Rawlings. I know that he really loves to study grammar, and he would even do it before he starts speaking the language. So I think this really depends on the person, and I think you should experiment yourself what would work for you. But if you would ask me, then I would say, if I had to do it, then I would just first focus on speaking and actually being able to make sentences with grammatical mistakes, and only find out the correct way to do it afterwards. Of course, you can also hire a teacher on, let's say italki, for example, who can help you to correct those mistakes and give you the explanations why certain things are. But I also think that it's important that the flow of the conversation keeps going. You know, so you actually stay confident. I think that's mainly the task of the teacher, to make you speak as much as possible, to make you feel confident about yourself, to make you speak as much as possible. So it's okay. Yeah, the language teacher, of course, should correct you, but should not maybe correct all your mistakes in order to keep the conversation going. But you can, again, experiment yourself with it. Like, you can ask your teacher, please correct every mistake. Maybe 10 minutes later, please do not correct all mistakes because I want to stay confident. You can try different approaches.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. All right. So I think Benson's question was like, what's your language learning routine?
Oh, my routine. So when I'm learning a language actively, so for example, that's what I'm doing for French. I started beginning of this year. I'm still improving my French. I just hold Skype classes three times a week. And then in the beginning, I also use the Glossica course. I really find it useful. I spoke to people that did not like it. Well, I do like it. Especially when you speak a language that a similar language already. I think then the courses of Glossica are really useful because you understand how the language is, you understand the structures, you understand the pronunciation, and then I think Glossica can be a very powerful tool. I did that in the beginning. I finished it, so now I just speak it. 3 times a week with a native speaker. I ask him to ask me as many questions as possible, so I am actually the one that's speaking, and not the not the teacher. Because if I want to listen to French, I can listen to the radio, or I can watch videos on YouTube. But if I want to speak and have someone correct me, then I actually need to talk to a native speaker. So that's what we try to do as much as possible during our class.
So for people,
that's my routine.
So people who are watching, because you mentioned just speak, right? For some, when. Did you hear my question?
No, I cannot hear your question.
Okay, so the question is, you mentioned just speak, right?
Speak and make notes, of course. Speak, get corrections, make notes of those corrections, of new vocab, and review it afterwards. That's what I do.
When you start from zero, you can't speak anything. So I want to see how you do it when you get started from zero.
Depends on the language. Okay, so for example, I'm going to start with French, but I do already speak Spanish or another Romance language. Then I would actually just, maybe first I would take a look in a phrasebook, or just teach yourself the HTML, all the common stuff, so you have an idea about the basic phrases, maybe learn a few of them, and then I would actually just start with a native speaker and just talk. And it doesn't have to be difficult things in the beginning. I can just say, for example, my name is Jan. What is your name? And then the guy says his name, and he would ask you another very easy question: where do you live? I might be able to understand it in French or in Spanish because I speak another Romance language. So all the way in the beginning, I would start to speak the language even when I don't speak the language, and on the way. Michel Thomas, I also found Michel Thomas very useful in the beginning of language learning, especially for the Romance and Germanic languages. It gives you a very good idea about the structure of a language, the pronunciation as well. So before I started speaking French, I also is Mr. Kwong still there? Who's that? I think he's gone. So I will continue anyway. Yeah, so Michel Thomas is another very powerful tool at the beginning before you actually start speaking. And then for a language like Chinese, okay, Brian is gone. I will just continue. If you guys have any question, then just you can just ask them. For Chinese, it's something else. It's not like learning French or learning Italian. For Chinese, I would just in the beginning focus on the syllables and on the tones. I like practice with. There's lots of tutorials on YouTube, but I would actually hire a teacher that like can help you to pronounce the syllables very clearly and the tones as well. And once you understand that, you can pronounce the first words. And then it's pretty easy to get started with a language like Chinese, because the grammar is not so difficult. So, in the beginning, I would focus on not maybe on speaking on holding conversation straight away, because that's impossible with a language with Chinese. But first, you should focus on the syllables. The second, the tones, and then you have to try to make sentences. For example, you say. I want. You know, I always start with the most common verb. So I want. You want. You want what? Just what do you want? In Chinese, you say you want what. Just try to construct sentences and add a new word every time. And you do that all the time until you reach a level at which you can actually make sentences. That's also how I did it for Thai, by the way.
Great.
Still need some more time for Thai.
It's very simple, huh? You just go I want, you want, and then what is this? What is that? And then eventually you build up, and then that's it, really.
Yeah. I always start with the most important first. So what do you want want, to be, to have, to eat for some reason? Because I think it's always fun, you know, if you go to Korea and you say you know, it doesn't make you like what do you want to eat? You know, you can always use those sentences to surprise native speakers.
Cool.
And that's fun. You get you make the people happy when you say things like that. They don't expect that. And
I think that's a good question from within the Hangout. A follow-up question about reviewing your notes from the conversation with your like iTalk teachers. So do you have a system, or how?
Okay, I can't hear you anymore, Brian. How do you make sure you review your conversation notes? Do you have a workflow? Is it based on technology? I do have I do know polyglots that speak, well, let's say more than 10 languages and who have a lot of experience in language learning. Yeah, some of them they have also tried different methods. So, for example, Lucas, the Brazilian friend of mine who speaks lots of languages, he would use Anki for this. You know, I don't do it because my philosophy is if a word is, I would always review my notes, but maybe only once or twice. I just read it, I check if I still remember the things and the words, and that's it. I would not put them in Anki with all and to do all those drills. I would not do that. I think it's too stressful, and I think that if the word is important enough, then I would have to use it in the next conversation or in another conversation, and I just ask it again if I forget it. And I might forget the meaning of the word twice or 3 times, or maybe I could only remember it after 5 times. But I think that's okay. I accept that. I accept that I forget words. So no, I don't do those drills. You know, because I believe that if the word is really important enough, then it would come back in a future conversation. I would revise it, I would read it, but if I forget it, yeah, then okay, then it's okay.
I think it's great that you said that. From what I hear, you said you're looking for what's fun and also what's not stressful. So the more fun it is, the less stress it is, the more likely you continue to study. Because if you're trying to stress yourself out, you know, you're most likely that you're not going to want to.
Yes, I did not get the last sentence. But yeah, I think it's very good to relax in language learning, and I don't do any drills or hardcore studying. You know, I'm not that person. There are people that can learn very well from books, that do very good at school, but I'm not a person like that. So yeah, if you've always been a good student in school, then well, maybe it will work for you to learn vocab lists or to learn words in context. That doesn't really work for me. I just have to use the language, and if I forget a word 5 times, then the 6th time I'll remember. It's more relaxed. Someone else?
Stress. All right. Anyone question in the Hangout? Anybody got a question?
Just based on the way it sounds like, obviously you learn language much more fluidly than structured. But now that you've gone through it 8 times already, do you follow like specific topics to try and learn those first because they're more important, or is it just completely fluid and depends on the situation?
You mean the topics where I talk about with my teachers?
Yeah. So I mean, you've said obviously focus on introductions first, and then you mentioned food. Then do you have a system that you follow through different topics, or?
Yeah, more or less. Well, I do not really have a system on paper, but yeah, I more or less I use the same. We talk about the same things most of the time when I start learning a new language. So for me, I think everyone should choose what he or she likes or is interested in. For me, what I find very important, you know, if you meet someone in another country, they're always going to ask you a few questions. So where are you from? How long are you going to stay here? Where are you going next? Why did you come to our country? You know, so I would always prepare those questions so that if I go to Thailand, for example, and people are going to ask me how long are you going to stay here, where do you live, that I can answer all these questions. So I always have my teachers asking me, you know, I ask them, please ask me how long am I going to stay here in Thai, you know, because I know I'm gonna get those questions. So those are the things I would focus on in the beginning. You know, after I reach the level at which I can construct short sentences, then I would focus on these kind of sentences, and to learn words like travel, go, to stay, to eat. I already said that. To learn. Huh? I came to your country to learn Thai because I like also very Thai people also very important. You know, I would focus on those kind of things, and after that maybe on questions like what do you do, huh? So that I can tell about what I do. We work with, we have a translation company, and I know how to say translation company and all those languages. So yeah, I would focus on the questions that people always ask you if you talk to a native speaker.
Thanks.
Thank you too. Someone else. Next question.
Fadwa, hopefully I'm saying his name wrong. He's in the Add1Challenge now, but he's not here. So he'd like to ask, what is your yearly routine? Because you said you need to do one a year. So what's your yearly routine?
Has changed over the last few years. Yeah, so to learn one language per year, but most of the time actually I always study 2 languages at the same time. So, it depends on where your interests are. For example, okay, let me think. In the last few months, I've been to France quite a bit, and I got to know a lot of French people, and therefore I prioritize my French because now I do have the motivation. You know, this year Thai, and I was planning to do Thai and French, but because I met a lot of French people recently, I have more motivation to learn French. So I spend more time with it because I do have the motivation. So the question is, what's your routine?
Not at the same. You said learn. You mean learn 2 languages at the same time? That's horrible. That's horrible advice.
From 2 I don't.
In a year, Jan.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. Well, no, I don't think it's a horrible idea. I think it depends on your interest. I think it depends on your motivation. Depends on the opportunity that you have to speak it. If you learn Thai and French at the same time, I do not really think, you know, they don't really interfere with each other. You don't mix them up. I think it's pretty safe. I tried to do with Spanish and Portuguese, that was that was more difficult. So my yearly routine is to learn two languages per year, or to practice 2 languages a year. Maybe I would need 2 years in order to learn those 2 languages to maybe a B2 level, or maybe I would say a B2 level.
Yeah, so I just want to be very responsible for like how, because we're talking about not learning, because we want to focus on one language. Most people are not advanced and they need to like focus on one.
Yeah, if you have
can you say let's talk about a little bit of that, because come on, man.
If you have only 3 months.
Thank you.
Only 90 days. If you have only 90 days to become fluent in a language, then I wouldn't learn 2 languages at the same time. But if you have a year, or if you have 2 years, I don't have to. I think it's really cool to set a goal to yourself to see and to see what you can do in 3 months. I've done it before, and it worked. But maybe now I know it's possible to hold a conversation after 3 months in a new language. I take a little bit more relaxed now, and I would set maybe a year for myself to learn a language. And it would be, maybe I would practice, like at the moment I'm taking French classes 3 times a week, but I would not do that for 12 months. Maybe only for 6, or maybe even less. More relaxed way of learning. But if you only have 3 months, then I would just pick one language and speak it at least 3 times per week. Yeah.
Thank you.
Was that okay? Yeah.
Thank you. That's better. Oh, just to make sure people understand, like, because people go like, oh yeah. Okay, so that's it. So where can so what do you think about the Add1Challenge then?
What do I think about the Add1Challenge? So as I told you before, only when I started the Add1Challenge, I started to regularly do speaking practice on iTalki, and only after I participated in the Add1Challenge, I did Cantonese back at the time, I found actually out that it was possible to hold a 10-minute conversation in the Talker language after only a few months, and that really motivated me to continue my language learning journey. So I think it's a really good thing to set a goal for yourself together with others, to learn a language, to focus on one language for 3 months, to practice every day, and to see what you can do. Because after you find out that you can do it, then then there are no limits anymore. Then you can learn. You can learn any language.
Cool. So thank you for participating. Thank you for answering the questions. And so where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook. Well, I do have this. Okay, so the website is janvandera.com. That's my name. .com. It's not really up to date, I have to admit that. I think the best way to follow is just follow me on Facebook. Just add me as a friend on Facebook, and there you can see updates on traveling and language learning. Most of the time, I post on these topics.
Got it. Okay, so just add Jan as a friend. Anybody?
As a friend, please. Friends.
You need more friends, that's why. Just kidding. All right, thank you so much for joining, and everybody's watching. Hopefully the recorded is not too bad. The recorded video is not too bad. And that's it. So see you guys.
Yes. Thank you everyone for participating. Brian, thank you too.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.